Very good morning to all of you. Thank you so much for coming so early in the morning. It's still 9 and people are coming in. So the discussion today is for Manji Moment to break legacy mountain of identity management, charting a path for risk-based identity governance. So to discuss the topic, we have an eminent panel with us. The discussion will be moderated by Mr. Ashutosh Jain, CISO Axis Bank. We have, among other panelists, Mr. Sudeep Das, Senior Manager, India and SAARC RSA, Mr. Pankaj Dikshit, Senior Vice President, IT GSTN, and Mr. Mitesh Thakkar, CEO, Adoroy. So may I request the panel to join us on the stage, please? So over to Mr. Jain for the discussion.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to, I think, the day 2, what we have here. So we are having a very interesting topic. As you can see, identity and access management, Manji Moment to break the legacy of mountain of data if we have it. That's the assumption. Because we'll come to that, whether we actually have identity management or identity governance, or what do we have actually. And we'll make it very interactive, and for, there are some kind of basic, I would say, basics. We are completely agnostic of our respective industries and the companies from where we come from. We will not be, be talking about our respective institutions where we come from. It is basically a discussion purely from the perspective of this particular, topic what we are discussing. Now, coming to Manji Moment. Now, I'm told Manji is actually a movie where, the person actually keeps on banging a rock till the time, one fine moment it cracks. And actually speaking, a mountain, yeah. So this is a amazing thing actually, it has high degree of actually, it echoes with, what the largest and the oldest of the institutions across the world that I have seen and I have known have been doing, for identity and access management. None of the institutions, to the best of my knowledge, could have a pan-enterprise identity governance, because either the solutions, were having challenges, or there were quite a few, challenges, and that is exactly what we will be speaking about in a moment. So I think we all echo that. We will make this particular topic, very interactive with the, while the panelists will take the first take, we will actually, expect the audience also to contribute as we actually, go along. So just to start, the first is actually identity governance versus identity management. Now, do we really differentiate among the two? What is identity governance? What is identity management? The first actually is, when it comes to governance, it means that we have a pan-enterprise view of, what exactly is happening, all employees, all accesses, what they have. Do we really have that kind of a control with a single team? And it's not only about the tool, please mind it. It is not tool, it is 80% process, 20% tool. So do we have those kind of processes which actually has the same rigor across the enterprise, which actually can give us assurance and our board's assurance that, indeed the access controls are there? And so that's the epitome, or the first stage, if I would say, on the governance side. The governance starts with that kind of a view, if you can have a pan-enterprise, all employees view. The next is actually, coming to the toxic combinations and having the fraud view of the next stage of evolution in the governance space, where you actually can detect frauds using the toxic combinations. Access is mother of all the frauds and all the compromises that happens either within or outside the enterprises. And with that, if we are able to have some level of predictability, that's the second stage, what probably we can aspire to have within the identity and access management governance space. And the third piece is, which we will actually delve towards the end of it, in this particular session what we are having, is the predictive capabilities to use the identity and access management in such a manner that one can actually predict based on certain specific events and the way a particular user is behaving to actually find out that that particular user is susceptible to a fraud or basically can perpetrate a fraud. So that actually, of course, there are some technologies with such machine learning capabilities which actually are now coming on the radar, but of course their use cases are very suspicious, or I would say a bit premature at this point in time, but still, that capabilities are also evolving on the thread. And I'll give you a perspective a bit later, and of course, the panel will also add to, how exactly this entire ecosystem is emerging. So this is identity governance. The second is, this has to be contrasted with identity management, which we all know every day what we do. So moving to identity management, it has two specific aspects. One is authentication and the second is authorization. The authentication actually would mean of when you actually try to access a particular application, whether it accepts your passwords or any kind of biometrics that you have. And the second is the piece is authorization. Once you are authenticated, what exactly is the level of accesses that you are granted on those applications or that you are using. So there are possibly 4 or 5 levels of stages of maturity that you can aspire in the identity management piece. The first is, what is well known in certain institutions which actually are having a very federated model of identity management, where let's say for example, marketing will have their own applications, finance will have their own applications, they will be managing the identities respectively within the same institute, within the same departments, and everybody is so happy because it becomes so fast. They want it, they get it. Then you actually start thinking that, okay, let's actually centralize this. So I'm taking you through the journey or basically the various stages that you can think of, and just setting the context for the panelists and the audience. The next stage of identity management is that you actually start thinking of centralizing it in one shop, at least if not anything else, but the process becomes standardized for all the applications rather than, finance doing something actually, absolutely uncontrolled within their own shop. Then comes, for certain critical applications, you start building a single console so that at least you can actually have a single console and you can find out for those critical applications, those applications are having a single, way to control it. Then comes basically the next level of maturity comes where SSO, the single sign-on or single sign-on like capabilities actually can be generated. Then comes basically I can anticipate that in the next level of maturity, the pan-enterprise capability for all the applications, because none of the organizations across the world have been able to reach that stage where all the applications in their respective folds actually are able to have a pan-enterprise, all applications under one single radar. And from the authorization perspective, the level of maturities are where you actually are able to validate whether the profiles are actually indeed correct or not. And basically from the validation perspective, you can actually even go to the segregation of duties. Say for example, whether you give the maker and checker to the same person or not, whether the person in finance actually should be doing, specific activities which probably, is from accounts receivables as well as, account payables. So there are a lot of such small nuances which actually are many a times absolutely dependent on the functions and the business processes that you have, that actually has a straight bearing on this and lead to revenue loss or frauds in your respective organizations. So this actually is the context with which we would like to go. The part 2 of this, actually we would like to have a small discussion around the B2C, the business to consumer piece of it also. But let's actually first have the complete, for avoiding any kind of confusion, let's have a discussion around the enterprise within, for the employees what we have. So let's do first a poll, among all of us, of how many do you feel that in your respective organizations or institutions, you feel that, among 1 to 10, as I spoke about the identity management piece, which means that you are looking at the single identities rather than all the identities, for which becomes, which comes into the arena of identity governance, when you start governing them rather than managing individual identities. So where do you stand actually? Maybe, So maybe if we can have show of hands of how many do you think so are on level 1 out of 5. So it's really nice to have level 2, 3, that's great, 3 and 4, that's great, and 5, I'm sure nobody, because at least it's not known that anybody actually has cracked this entire thing. So, goes back to our saying of Manji movement that, indeed it's something, which we are definitely trying to crack, and that's the reason we are actually here. So, the first thing, now actually, this is a question to to the panel that we have, that why exactly access management, even though, it is known that it is the mother of all the frauds, why exactly it's not taken seriously, why it is not prioritized? So maybe if I can ask Pankaj, if you can actually take a lead on this, in terms of why exactly, it's not prioritized, or if it is prioritized.
Yeah, thanks, Ashutosh. I think it depends on the industry, but before I come to the actual answer to the question, I would like to firstly second the aspect about the governance and the management. Right, having worked for an IT company that looked after the identity, in fact the complete IT services of one of the largest telecom service providers, I absolutely agree with you that all the frauds happen, and this is the gateway. If your identities are not secured, whether they be on your internal systems or whether they be on your customer side retail centers or whether they be in your enterprise, all the frauds, this will be the single gateway. Where you have various OEMs lined up here with their products, but when the products are actually deployed, if you do not take care of the identity right from the word go, before they even enter your premises, that will be the source of the fraud, and breaches and identities or data will come and go through that. That's as far as the threat is concerned. The other aspect is that the governance has to flow from the top. We all know how difficult it is for a CISO to convince his management and his CIO that security is important. So if security itself is considered, a cost center, trying to convince them of something as far away, in the minds of the business and of the CIO of identity, it is just not there in their minds. Only a true security person can understand how important identity is. Coming down to the management aspects, the processes of most of the enterprises today are not focused around identity. When you talk about processes, everybody looks at ITSM, or at the most they will go up to ISO 27001. In ISO 27001 you have so many controls. Identity is just one part. When you go for a certification, you will be certified across all the domains, but identity, how well or how strictly is that audited is another aspect. So I think to answer that question of why it lacks maturity is because the focus and the understanding is not there. Having moved from a physical world to an IT world, what did you used to have originally? There used to be a gate, you used to have a sentry or a guard who used to ensure that he checks everybody who's coming in and going out. Unfortunately, the transition to the IT world was so fast, and the processes and the churn and turnover was so quick that the thing has not probably related and, but every day we are having new and larger frauds detected daily, and when you go into the RCAs of those, you realize, yes, where was the breach, what was the cause? It was identity theft.
So indeed, Pankaj, actually if you do any forensics or any kind of investigation, you will definitely find an element of somewhere you actually, may miss the identity. Either you gave a overprivilege to that particular individual, or basically, the person was, probably not supposed to be having that kind of access. So access control is, the first perimeter of defense. But as you said, the top management piece, which is very interesting, I feel that it is probably, I would say the priority of the perimeter among all of us is so critical that we actually somewhere you lose focus on, the identities which we need to manage, which in turn becomes so critical, becomes a straight entry point for any kind of person for the application or within the perimeter also. So top management sensitization is the responsibility of the respective persons, who people who are actually managing security, and I think once they themselves believe truly into identity and access management, then they can actually take it up with the top management respectively. Do you agree? Or
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And you see, you talked about the word perimeter. The CIOs and the business probably understand the word perimeter, but for them the perimeter stops and starts at the firewall. So when they look at the networks, they look at those diagrams and they say, okay, firewall is there, so my network, if it's shown to them that the firewall is there, they think, okay, I'm secure. Or maybe at the most an IDS and IPS. I would say the true security professional today is one who has understood identity and access management. Because if you have done IAM, you will understand the complete stack of security products. Otherwise, you are limited to a firewall or an IDS or an IPS or a DLP or a proxy. But if you've understood ID, it is across all those devices.
perfect. So moving on, Sudeep, actually let me put a twist to this question what actually we have, or the problem that we are trying to address here. Now, at one point in time, long back we used to have client server applications, then the browser based applications, and now many of the applications are coming to the mobile. In fact, this is becoming a blessing in disguise for the identity and access management, because whatever you could not do on both of the platforms, on client server and for the browser based, actually you can easily do it on mobile, because you have clients which actually can become a single gateway for the applications. So while we definitely, I would like you to actually address why access is not prioritized, but if you can also throw shades on whether this actually should be considered as a blessing in disguise, or do you think so that there is something else that one should be really cautioned of?
Right. So I'll start off with the access, why it is not prioritized, with a little analogy that Pankaj just mentioned about. In the physical world, a person who is working in the office, is the HR really deciding what he should be doing or not doing? Or is HR really responsible for operationalizing the role of a physical person who is inside the office? How many of you would say yes? How many of you do say no, that HR is not deciding? Somebody else, the business is deciding, right? In the physical world, when we are seeing HR who is the enabler, as well as IT or the digital side is the enabler, but it is IT's work to provide the access, to create the access, to segregate what authorization they want to do. Business actually has no mapping of what they want to the digital world. So while IT is doing the best that they could do, understanding what the business would want to have, business is running their own in a different manner. So in the IT world of the digital identity phase, it's extremely difficult for IT to give the correct level of access exactly as if it was the business who was deciding it. Right? So one of the reasons why it's not, the governance part of it really does not become apparent and successful is because business really is not deciding what access is giving. It is really the IT people, based upon the templates that they have been, or based upon their understanding that they're providing. So there's one gap which we see, which makes it difficult to prioritize access, because IT is, they really do not. Right? The second part of it is mobile centralizing the legacy model. Now going back to that Margie moment around legacy applications and all, it's been building over again. I mean, over years we have been building up client server application, and that is where this mountain of problem got created. And then you get a mobile which will just fly over all of those client servers. So I'm sure, absolutely sure, that mobile being the single place from where I might be accessing all my applications and all my IT activities, which may or may not be true. I mean, I really feel that it's still a laptop, it's still a desktop, and a mobile, all of them with equal level of usage within enterprise. So it's not really going to, I don't believe it's going to make life easier. It's going to make life a little more difficult, because mobiles are inherently outside the perimeter. and whereas desktops and laptops for certain period of time might be inside, the mobile never really is. It might not even be on the corporate network ever. They might just be the thing.
No, I agree. So you are actually taking the discussion into I know that there are risks associated with the mobile, but definitely very selfishly, if I were to look at this particular identity and access management problem, and if you're very myopically looking at this, then probably there is actually a silver lining that suddenly the problems get solved
I
easily.
absolutely agree. It's the silver lining which I am seeing people saying is that this becomes at least the single point of authentication.
Exactly.
Biometrics can become a possibility. Single place where I'm putting in my passwords could be a possibility. I'm always catching it. It's with me. So I believe mobile would help us at least on the identification part of it.
Exactly.
If not the other aspects of identity management.
Yeah, that is, authorization still remains an enigma, and of course we'll touch base on that particular point in a short while. So maybe if I can switch over to Mitesh, if you can actually share your thoughts on the same. Why exactly, from the enterprise perspective, why exactly access probably is not prioritized, as you see on the other side of the table. As you actually have discussions with the enterprises, how exactly do you see the discussions going, and what exactly is your take?
Access per se on enterprise level, there are so many applications, and nowadays actually with the cloud becoming very pervasive actually, where not everything is on premise. So what happens is actually that enterprises now started buying, say, a CRM out of cloud. Now how do you actually have everything at one place? So where I have subscribed something on a cloud, and also I have on-premise applications, and if this employee leaves, how do I ensure that all his credentials are actually really being sorted, that they cannot be misused after he leaves? So that's where the challenges come in, where part of the applications are on-premise and they are from different vendors. Again, part of the applications are on cloud, and you do not have access to all those together. So that's where a single sign-on kind of an application or a password manager kind of an application are something that is a priority that is required. But what is happening is various departments and organizations keep on requiring applications for their various purposes, and they sometimes test it out, right? So that's where the mountain comes in, and it's always going to. I start using an application, say Salesforce, and then I drop it, and then I start using some other software for my business requirements. And how do I ensure that the employee who's using this CRM and jumps into another cloud-based CRM is not reaching?
So you're bringing a very, very good dimension to this entire thing. Now, with actually every person, has the capability of actually using cloud-based services, and if you actually allow that from the enterprise, I would say legitimately, then the entire mountain suddenly becomes Mount Everest actually, because you simply need to have those kind of capabilities to control the access. Many times, it may not be syncing up with your active directories within your respective organizations, and hence it can become a huge problem to manage that cloud-based solution. So we'll come to that, but that's a very, very good point. So let me actually open up to the audience at this point in time, and if we can have Mike actually, for people, those who may like to contribute, of why do you think so actually, the access in, as you see it, why exactly it is not prioritized?
I think access management is being taken into very seriously from the audit perspective. When it comes to the senior management, the focus is not there. It might be because they are looking at it, it's a very legacy system and it's a very easy to manage it out. But when you talk about the perimeter level security, firewall, IPS and IDS, the major focus from the senior management is there. And I think you correctly said that the identity access management is 80% is a process and 20% is technology. That's right. But I think if you look at the role management is a cycle. The mountain, we can very well control that mountain to grow if we do a role mining and role management activity proactively. Rather than people are getting access rights and it's getting an exceptional access over a period of time. There are some people who raise a request for temp access. but there is no mechanism to control that temp access, and there is no notification for revocation of that. And the point which you bring to our attention is that the business and HR, I think we need to have a joint hands from HR for joiners, leavers and transfers, and subsequently for the business to ensure that what is the level of access they need to maintain their day-to-day operation. I think that where we need a collaboration and coordination efforts. IT itself cannot manage the access for 700 or 800 for the enterprise level access management.
Great. So the point of business participation and involvement is actually, definitely very key. We recognize that, and we'll probably, next we will actually come with, what exactly are the best practices that one would have applied, or probably, can anticipate to work very well. So we'll just park it for a moment, but let's actually, if we dwell on, why exactly you have seen access being prioritized or not being prioritized. Even let's actually talk of how exactly you have seen actually, some magic techniques by which you could actually even get it prioritized absolutely on top. Maybe some fraud which you directly attributed to a fraud, access I would say violation which actually brings access control absolutely the top agenda for the security teams as well as the CIOs in the respective organizations. So maybe people can share their respective point of views.
Somebody can actually share.
Yeah, please. If you can use the mic, please. The mic is over here.
Hi. I have a couple of points to make here. One, about prioritizing the entire access management suite, IDM or other measures we take around it. One motivation here can be internal frauds, like we talked about. What rights are given to certain individuals in the organization. To monitor those rights, to review them on a periodic basis, and to ensure the rights are given in an appropriate way. I think that is one mandate of the CIO which he will agree with when we go to convince him. Apart from the access governance part, I think the challenges which come is first about the process.
Yeah,
How
so
do we
just if you can park the challenges piece, so we'll definitely come to the challenges as a part 2, but if you can actually help us understand why exactly you see it is probably not prioritized at this point in time as much as we would aspire to see, or probably the flip of it, that side also, that if it is prioritized by some ways and it is actually absolutely the top standing agenda in your.
Sure. So in terms of prioritizing it, like I first spoke about the internal frauds, and also if you look at the other internal threats, employees leaving, not just employees, my vendors who have access to the organization, typically when they leave the organization, the information does not flow back to my HR. In case of an employee leaving the organization, it's fairly simple. I can have a robust process around it. Challenge come, or one of the motivation I'll say for access management to come here is when a non-employee or a vendor leaves the organization. I think that's one more motivation here. And of course, for my single sign-on, as operational effectiveness, ease of use for my employees, I think that is one more factor wherein the XSO capabilities help us. Plus, whenever my audits happen, I have regulators, I have my other auditors come in to show them the audit evidence, to show them we have a process to create all the, to maintain all the artifacts. I think this is also where it is helpful.
Perfect. You brought very, very good points. Actually, the internal frauds, the vendor piece, the attrition, and also the friction, I would say aspiration of being absolutely less frictional in nature, that we can give it to the employees so that, the adoption becomes very fast. So great. So we'll come to the next point. I think you had a point, or if you can just come to the mic, please.
Hi, I'm Siddharth Gandhi from Simeo Solution. I probably want to touch upon the lack of prioritization, and it comes largely from experience in terms of what we've seen happening in organizations. I think one of the key pieces is people or application. It's about involving all stakeholders at part of that IAM implementation. So we've seen lack of understanding over there because at the end of the day, those application owners feels that the control is going to go away from them, which is actually not the case. So I think what is important is education within the organization of what identity and access management is all about and how it can actually help and what can the ROIs be for an organization. And it needs to be seen as a journey. I think one of the panelists did mention that on an ongoing basis 1 to 5. So it's actually a journey that you start at 1 and eventually reach stage 5. It's not something that you start and immediately at the end of the implementation reach 5. So I think that if you keep that in mind, I think it would be very helpful for organizations to prioritize IAM.
Perfect. So 2 points what you made, very good points actually about the awareness. So it sometimes seems to be very paradoxical that actually, while fraud seems to be, having a common thread of access, and still access becomes the last priority. So you need to actually build awareness to your top management that it is extremely important, let's do something about it, and collectively we need to do about it, still takes the back seat. So it is very paradoxical, but I think reality probably. And the second thing is the patience. So it's a very good point, and we are coming to that shortly, in terms of my next question, if so probably, yeah.
I want to, just
Please.
share a thought here, not thought, actually an experience on the awareness part. One of the very, straightforward use cases of identity management are ghost accounts.
Yeah.
We all talk about ghost accounts, and we went to the management saying that we can remove ghost accounts. And the management was straight faced, so what? Okay, now ghost accounts is a problem, but so what? Which means you don't think it is priority. No. Okay. We went back after a few iterations and we started putting people picture on our presentation. And we said, he is he, he is he, he is he. And then we put some actual ghost, these skeletons. And then we put this guy. He is still in the system in your room. He's sitting as a ghost here, showed it as a picture, and then he started talking. Okay, this person has left my organization, he still has access, that is the reason he is ghost.
Then they understand the ghost.
Right, so we all know the stuff, put it in the perspective, in the awareness, we understand that access is leading to my fraud, but fraud is still taking my thought, which is not the access which is taking my thought. How do I really relay that I'm not having any fraud if I wouldn't have had these access problems? How best to communicate it to the management? I think awareness and communication is one of the reasons why it's not getting the correct level of.
No, perfect. That's great. So definitely, the generic IDs are a very big problem. So I think let's switch gears now. So the next thing that I would like the panel to dwell on, and then we'll actually come to the audience, is what are the major challenges in your respective, as you see it, not for your respective organizations, but as you see it generally, of implementing a pan-enterprise access governance? Identity, I would just take it, or identity also. As you see it, what are the biggest challenges that you see in implementation? Since we recognize that it is important, but what exactly are the stumbling blocks in going for it? So maybe Pankaj, if you can take a stab on that first.
Yeah, before I come to your question, I just wanted to further take on Sudeep, and I am very happy to see at least two of them I think are actually hardcore ID people, because they brought out these issues of the real life issues that they encounter on day-to-day life. So what Sudeep mentioned was ghost IDs. In technical parlance, as an IAM manager, you would call them undeleted IDs or dormant IDs, and these are the biggest source of vulnerabilities. In an enterprise where you do not have a proper tool and you have lakhs and lakhs of IDs, just to give you an example, there used to be worth 12 lakhs IDs, that means 1.2 million IDs without any automated tool, and we used to do the validations on a quarterly basis manually on Excel. So the challenge in access, coming to the challenges in access governance, first is to apprise the management of how important it is, and will you wait for a fraud to convey the impact and the level of seriousness that it can impact your organization. It's very difficult to hypothetically talk, like you put a picture to the ghost ID. When you just mention ghosts in your organization, they didn't understand. But then you put an ID, you drew a skeleton around it, put a face, okay, this person who's left the organization, but he's still there in your boardroom. And he can see, he can access, he can, maybe manipulate your data and try to influence, the goings on in the. So access controls not only IDs but the complete gamut of it, starting from physical and logical to virtual and then the identity. The most important part is while the security establishment understands it, and most importantly the CISO, trying to put a picture, as Sudeep said, to it, to the person who's going to actually fund it and give you the money. I think that's a major challenge.
Okay, great.
Other than
So,
that, actually,
yeah,
what I would like to see is actually that in increasing perspective here, actually, then when the people are leaving the organization and they're becoming a ghost, so where they continue to access various things which are outside the radar. So how do you actually? So it's about not more than a process. What are the best practices that has been used actually to break this mountain? So right now we are only discussing around the problem that the management should tell the right person and show the photo. That is one of the process factors. But apart from these process factors, are there any best practices more than the processes, like tools actually that can actually stop this? Not only the mountain, but even the Mount Everest,
Yeah.
as you rightly said.
So Mitesh, actually coming to the best practices, especially for the generic IDs and the dormant IDs, there are very well-known processes, and it is all about processes more than actually the tools, because the tools can give you as best what you aspire to the tool to do. The first is actually recognizing that you have generic IDs, and generic IDs are potentially susceptible for being misused first. There are dormant IDs, the joiners, movers, leavers. If people are transferred from X to Y department, or basically are leaving the organization, as the gentleman over there told, vendors. If you have a huge amount of attrition, then those actually are the contributing factors which actually can lead to such kind of dormant accounts in your huge. They raise the risk of frauds, potential frauds in your enterprise. So these are definitely factors which needs to be recognized. Going back to
So some of the, what I know about some of the tools used in the US is what federated logins. So where the logins are federated, which may not be in one single area, or there are password managers or SSOs actually, which are not just on-premise SSOs. Actually, they're on-premise and cloud management. So so are these also, so with the one click, when an HR knows that this fellow is left, almost all his accounts can be actually.
So that is an aspiration. When a person leaves, to even know that that person was enjoying access within and outside the organization of the list of everything is an aspiration for most of the organizations to have. All you know that the critical application access will be revoked the day he or she leaves the organization, but maybe certain other accesses will be revoked till the time one good day somebody finds that okay, these are the specific accesses enjoyed by somebody who left a year back. So that's as
maintaining the list of applications that
a
follows
pan-enterprise view of every person having all the accesses within and outside is an enigma in many cases, not in all cases, but in many cases. And to have that predictive capability is something, as the epitome of, what we discussed earlier. But even to have a complete pan-enterprise view for all applications and all employees in and out is definitely an enigma. Unless, there are, if you would, I would say, not agree with this statement, then probably, welcome if there is a feedback.
No, I would like to only take up this fact that I was mentioning that we used to do these 12 lakh ID validation on a quarterly basis. If I had a tool, I would be much happier.
Yeah.
The validation exercise which used to take me 1 month or more, if I have a tool which can do that, it will obviously be better. But then I have to have that tool as a reliable tool, right? That tool should also be able to scrub and scan my entire systems for any ID that may be lying.
So I think it is an achievement, 12 lakhs and doing it manually, quarterly. It's an absolute achievement. But the thing is, many people don't have that kind of, I would say, patience and
yes.
capability to do it, because you need an army of people to do it.
There was no army of people, but you should understand we were dependent on other systems owners to give us the IDs. So I have to firstly trust the data they give me, and then I have to validate it by going back to them. And not only that, it has to be through the level of hierarchy, and not only normal IDs, the privilege IDs, the actual system admins who are going to have it. Not only system IDs, then shared IDs. So it used to be a
So mode of attestation actually that was coming top and the
bottom
bottom
up.
bottom
yes.
up.
So if I have a tool which can do that, obviously it will be much
So
simpler.
there are, so I'm coming to
There are
that.
tools, of course.
Yeah, I'm coming
Trying
to
to
that.
second what
So
Hitesh is saying.
when it comes to challenges, one of the points which I would like to throw open, is the build versus buy. When I say build, as in, every enterprise is different. Every enterprise has their own challenges and nuances. One of the classic problems when you buy a tool is that the tool will have so much of legacy problems with the legacy applications that it becomes a year-on-year project, and as somebody said, patience, you lose patience. You just simply can't integrate, and hence people lose trust into people, those who are actually delivering or going to deliver that particular solution. And hence, some people actually go the build way. When you start going the build way, your teams actually keep on churning, code after code, and still, the legacy does not integrate because you would have some specific, application which actually has no more support from the OEM or whatever good reasons that they would have, and still nobody can do about it. Then you suddenly people have now found a middle path. We'll create a single, a kind of a screen through which every application can be accessed, and that particular can become a single point of entry. And that again has a shades of build versus buy. So actually, so probably, taking, Sudeep, if you can touch upon this build versus buy, what do you think so that, this is possibly a challenge that probably people make a mistake right in the beginning of decision making of build versus buy, or where exactly to do, which in turn translates into a failure of these kind of projects and aspirations?
Right. Everybody is building. There's absolutely no organization in this entire enterprise who is not building shades of identity management. Right? I mean, either using an AD or a process. So build part of activity is always there. Now, as Pankaj mentioned, if there is a tool, it will accelerate that process. And that's what I see all the time. Aspects of build, present, you bring in the buy part of it to plug in certain acceleration into your program. But the issue which I see when the buy comes into picture is that my buy objective is pan enterprise day zero. And definitely none of the tools are ready for an objective that huge. And I believe, the Maji moment was used, that word. He compared one of the banks in Mumbai, when they started off their identity management program. He said, I want to be the Maji. I want to break one by one by one by one till I create a road through this mountain. I know I have to do pan enterprise, but my objective today is my HRMS and AD. My objective 3 months from, after AD is my IT management system, etc., etc. So he defined his Maji movements so that at no point of time the buy seems to be superfluous because it's not giving me pan enterprise. And people go on, hammering the IT team that why hasn't the road been made till date? I have already paid you for the tool, but the road is not there. Right? So going the Maji way of breaking application by application by application and not waiting for the entire thing to become out before I show top management that, hey, here is my mountain broken and the road broken. I think that is one possible way of taking the Maji experience and putting onto IEM.
So if I can interject here, actually speaking, you are saying that the management, that has an assumption that the management is extremely patient for, one after another applications, considering, if one would have, 300 to 3,000 applications, this may take forever and the management still remains to be patient.
That's the assumption, which is a very, very difficult assumption. And it's not too difficult an assumption for an organization which has already spent a lot of time doing the build to buy big bang way and possibly failed.
Okay.
So they become patient, they understand. And another aspect which the top management there, which you mentioned earlier as well, in a little different context, the 80-20 rule for this mountain is applicable. 80% of your IDs are within 20% of your applications, the critical part of it. So if you go ahead and address your project, IEM project, focused on 20% of your application, hopefully 80% of your risks will come down.
Yeah.
That's again another assumption which might be.
No, definitely, very valid point.
Yeah, coming to applications, it's a different animal altogether because you have your systems which you're building, but when you get applications developed and the applications which you leave behind and you get new ones, and those applications and the IDs which the developer has hard coded into his code, it's impossible to even get around that because you will not get the developer back. You can't stop the application, you can't take it out of the system, and yet there is no way getting around it.
And you should also pray that, somebody doesn't actually, look at those and misuse those IDs also. So prayers are extremely important.
And the last, one more point I want to mention because we are talking about tools. Tools are good, but they are not the ultimate solution. I'd like to, take this on with the audience here. How many of you can stop your server owner from logging on directly as root in spite of having tools to control your access?
No, that is possible through web application firewalls.
You cannot, because the server owner will always have some way of getting around and logging onto the server.
Okay.
So it's an impossible thing. Whatever tools you might put, still there is somebody who's still going to at least have that access. Whether he does it or not is for your validations and secondary controls to check.
Perfect.
So tools, when you talk about tools and you talk about buying products, be sure that there are other processes which ensure that your tool combined with the processes prevent and control access to the critical systems.
Perfect. So I'll take Mitesh, if you can actually, address the same thing on the other side of the table. How do you see, the challenges, what the enterprise actually end up facing, and how do you see them
So I'll tell
addressed?
you, the enterprise on the largest perspective, and the large enterprise like banks are fortunate actually that most of the softwares they buy are on-premise. But today when the cloud is in actually, and there are companies who start up with the cloud and they end up with cloud. Very few enterprise applications they put it on-premise. So that's where the major challenge comes in, that actually that I have bought this application which is in cloud, that application and several applications in cloud. How do I do a kind of access management and identity management for all the employees that are there? Because where the 3,000 applications are not within your firewall. So that's where the big Maji moment is awaited here. Actually, that the applications and tools and the processes will be the solution. And what I would like to see is some of the solutions which you guys must have used actually. If you can tell us that what are the solutions that are able to do that?
Well, definitely, we'll come to that. So I think let's blend this challenges and solutions also, because this is not only for the challenges. We'll definitely not be admiring the problem statement, but also the solutions also. So probably if you can start with the cloud, we'll go the reverse way, and of course go to the audience with the blend of challenges and the problem state, the solutions also.
So the cloud unfortunately cannot be restricted to a Mac ID or something like that, which are typical.
So there are actually solutions by, which actually come under the generic category known as CASBs, the Cloud Security Access Brokers, which actually are becomes a federated model where any authentication that happens for your employees or even for your customers can actually be routed through those particular services, which are again on the cloud, and becomes a single point of authentication for any service hitting your what you are actually subscribing on the cloud. So these are a standard set of services. Of course, at this point in time, the CASB has not been able to be standardized, which means that we are seeing certain specific sets of CASBs which are taking the lead. But at this point in time, we are not seeing a single CASB who can give the services for almost all the cloud service providers which you may end up. So actually speaking, if you were to go for CASB at this point in time, you may end up going for 2 or 3 different CASB solutions, and slowly that may merge into one eventually.
You also said that some organization making a page of all the services and.
Yeah, so that is for internal. For the browser type of applications or client server applications, you can actually have a smoke screen which in turn becomes the single gateway for all the applications for your.
Does that allow a passwordless access after you?
So yeah, so there are shades of differences that various solutions are there. So from that perspective, so can you?
Any of you have used something like password managers actually in this role actually is to, there are various password managers like that are available on premise as well as on cloud. So where actually, so what happens is the single access is actually the first you enter the password manager, and then inside that there are a list of applications, and clicking
Yes.
that
Yes.
you directly get into it.
I'd like to take a dig at this. When we started off with the enterprise, Kerberos was one hugely successful protocol that people talked about of managing access for enterprise applications. Kerberos still is one of the best known, but that's the only best known. If you think of what else other than Kerberos, you will start thinking almost like, okay, not there. You know, Lotus Notes came up with another ticketing system. But on the web and the cloud side, fortunately, the amount of community work that has happened, right from the days of Liberty Alliance or the Microsoft Passport project, or for that matter now the FIDO project or the OAuth project which has been pushed by Google and all, I believe there is a whole, or the WS Trust, the web services, WS Trust level of protocols. I believe on the cloud side we are in a much, much better position to address the single sign-on or the authorization or your access brokers in the cloud. I believe there is a whole bunch of protocol support
That's true.
which is available, which will not allow it to become a mountain of problem, is what my belief would be.
That's indeed true actually. As we are going into the cloud and mobile, from this perspective, we are seeing a solution, because those cannot be enabled unless you have a very strong identity. With that premise, we are actually seeing that this problem is getting addressed in some way, and you are having a different shades of problem which you of course have to grapple with. So I would actually like the audience to actually, if you can, have a quick, because I am actually being shown that we are having.
Yeah, hello, I'm Gurudat. I'm the editor of WCAG security blog, and I've been with the identity and access management field for some time. So I think what is happening is, as I see it both in enterprise and outside of enterprise, is that we still have, even in IAM applications that we are using, still they are more of like a centralized way of dealing with things. So I think there is a need for democratization of IAM, where say if I'm the manager, okay, and I want to give access to a vendor to access a particular application in my organization. So as enabler of that business which is about to happen, I should have I should be able to give the access instead of going to IT or and getting this done, because that will cut down the time. And so basically I'm saying that there should be some kind of out of band, where even if I'm in a different place, a different country, I can give access to somebody in another part of the world.
Indeed, very good point.
So
Actually,
I think that's what I say is the democratization of IAM. It has to happen if you have to keep up with the times. Thank you.
definitely, that's a very good point. Any other point? Yeah, if you can just quickly contribute, and then.
So just quickly around the build and buy, right? I think one of the limitations around build is scalability. I think over a period of time, if your organization is growing, and if you have, for example, 1,000+ applications, to be able to integrate that with a in-house built IAM solution is going to be quite challenging. So we've seen a lot of products. I don't belong to a product company. I don't sell products. I want to put that caveat over here. But if you have there are a lot of products which are available which give you not only provisioning, but also audit capability, reporting, SODs, whatever we've spoken about in one single platform. And you are actually able to integrate. So today we are actually integrating a bank globally with 1,700 applications, right? So we are able to do it with that single platform, and which is scalable. And we are managing close to over 2 million identities over there, right? So we always recommend that it's always good to buy out, because it gives you a lot of capabilities within that single platform.
Definitely, it's a blend, and actually I think we should not forget, while build and buy, it's a process. It's actually predominantly a process more than actually a tool. So, any other before we actually wrap up? Yeah, quickly, please.
Just a different dimension to this. I do agree, and we have all been doing like say SSO.
If you can just be a bit louder, please.
Yeah. So it's a different dimension from the network side. Most of the organizations are outsourcing and their access is still based on the network layer. So until that is also taken into account from the identity perspective, that is your perimeter protection based on your identities, your network should be ready. If your network is not ready with identities and like say your access flows through the network, whether you're accessing any application or you're going and accessing any cloud, unless your network is not facilitating, your network is not ready, you're not going to have the complete, like say, fruit of identity, governance.
Actually, the NAC solutions are exactly meant for that, proving the identity of the tool as well as the user. So the device as well as the endpoint as well as the user. So NAC solutions and all the well-known products which
solutions are there, not all the vendors are there and not the complete. And then it also ties to your why access is not prioritized. Then because you have to upgrade your it's not about small organizations, but mid to large organizations, which has thousands of firewalls, and so that becomes a challenge for CIO. So people are going.
And this becomes important when your perimeter is dissolving because your endpoints are actually. So I think that is a very valid point that people need to prioritize not only identities of the people but also the devices that they are bringing in. So I think we had a very, very good. So just to kind of summarize where we actually what we discussed. We discussed the importance of top management. We discussed the business involvement, which is extremely important because without everybody's involvement, it's not one person's business, but everybody's business to manage identities. Internal frauds and vendors and attritions are key, magic tricks, which actually came up in this entire discussion, by which you can actually turn the table and actually make it a very important studying agenda for your to-dos list. And also awareness and patience is extremely important. Awareness for the people, those who actually make it important for you, and patience from the perspective of doing it slowly and steadily. Of course, prioritization 80-20 rule, what was brought by Sudeep, is extremely important. Now, having said that, just one last thing which I would like to leave you with a parting thought is that the context in your security analytics and the SOC is all about identity and access management. If you don't have this and you don't have it integrated with your SIM, you don't have the context. So please ensure that you have this built onto your SIM, the SOC, as well as the analytics, which gives the context and hence the capability of the predictive, what we spoke about, that if there is somebody who is actually out there to actually defraud, you can actually predict it right beforehand rather than actually as a reactive thing. So thanks a lot for this August panel and a very, very wonderful audience who participated very well. Thanks a lot.